Hi, my name is Derek Lee. I am the co-chair of the NIST Education SuperCluster under the Global City Teams Challenge. A lot of people ask us what the Education SuperCluster is and what the heck is a supercluster. And so we're here to debunk what that means and give a one-on-one so that people can understand what the heck we're talking about when we're sharing this work with the Education SuperCluster. First and foremost, you can go to our website at www.edsupercluster.com. So the Education Supercluster lives within this structure here. Essentially what we're representing is a federal smart city initiative under Department of Commerce and Department of Homeland Security. And within the Department of Commerce is the National Institute of Standards and Technology called NIST. And within NIST, there's a federal smart city program called the Global City Teams Challenge. The Global City Teams Challenge has actually been called Smart America on its early days. And as they realized that people were doing work in smart cities across the world, they changed the name to the Global City Teams Challenge. So the Global City Teams Challenge is essentially a network of people and teams across the United States and in the world working on smart city projects across different sectors of work, from utilities to energy to public safety to agriculture to wireless technologies to education and transport and so forth. So the first program of the Global City Teams Challenge is the Action Cluster. And an Action Cluster essentially is an approved smart city project team anywhere in the world consisting of at least one public sector team member. So essentially it's a sheet of paper that you fill out that I'll share with you in a little bit that you then get approved on, and then you can actually get access to the network, such as our events with this federal smart city initiative, typically in Washington, D.C. For our education supercluster, we have education-based action clusters. So basically it's people working on education innovation projects around the globe, and they apply as an action cluster, and essentially we distill out their best practices from that. So here are some examples of projects being worked on across the world that were applied as action clusters and got approved. Here are all the action clusters around the world currently. This, I think, is a culmination of about 2 to 3 years of action clusters formed within the Global City Teams Challenge. So as you can see, there's a huge wide array of projects around the world that are occurring that are part of this network. And here are all the different municipalities and cities that were applied with action clusters. So what does it mean to be an action cluster? You basically fill out all these different pieces of information on this 11 by 17 sheet of paper, including the title of your project, the description of your project, the challenges and solutions that your project offers, the requirements of what your project is, the performance and metrics around your project, the standard, scalability, and even cybersecurity overlay, so we understand kind of the aspects of privacy and data and so forth, impact that your project is having in the world, the deployment and the demonstration and the piloting of these projects, and then your team, and then the public sector partner. So what that looks like on the actual deliverable is this 11 by 17 sheet of paper that's essentially a Google Doc, and you can fill it out and then submit it, and someone from the NIST team, either Sokwu or Gary Dennis, typically are the ones that approve of this, and then you're then part of the network. So you can do further research by going to gctc.opencommons.org. All the action clusters and superclusters actually get entered into this wiki, so that all the data is available for people to review, research, and look into to learn best practices from all these different incredible project teams being worked on around the world. So what is a supercluster? A supercluster is a cross-sector consortium of organizations developing blueprints and actions for scalable sector-specific smart city deployment. So basically, it's a group of organizations working on creating best practices and distilling out best practices so they can publish it out to the world so people can benefit, as well as cities, industry, education, universities, and community-based organizations. So it's a group of organizations working for the better of that specific topic. So in our case, we're an education-based supercluster, and there's also transportation and so forth. So here are all the various of superclusters occurring right now. Again, transportation, public safety supercluster, agriculture, utility, data, wireless, building supercluster is forming, and then ours, which is education. We like to see education supercluster as essentially as a horizontal or kind of a cross-secting supercluster. So that will be how we'll be operating into the future. Now, the supercluster is formed after the action clusters, and it formed because we started realizing that there were a lot of different action clusters being siloed from each other and really not coming together to create best practices. So that's where superclusters came about, was to essentially group these action clusters in specific topics and then create those blueprints and start to actually collaborate with each other to actually build the future of these sectors and industries. And a lot of it is really organic. A lot of it's cross-pollinating with each other, having action clusters be formed, join superclusters. Sometimes action clusters get formed because of superclusters. There's a lot of variety and types in which action clusters and superclusters kind of mingle and come together and actually create solutions together. So it can come from either angle, and for the most part, it is evolving still. For our education supercluster, we've tentatively essentially created a flow in which we want our members of our supercluster to make action. Number one is forming an action cluster. And that's really the base of joining the Global City Teams Challenge, is essentially taking your project that you're working on in your city, your town, your region, and applying with it. And then once you're in, then you can actually join the Global City Teams Challenge. Now, for our specific education supercluster, we have a function of piloting projects with those action clusters. So if you want to take that project that you're working on in your region to another region in your area, perhaps across the state to one of our member partners, or across the country or across the world, we're going to help to assemble those scenarios so that you can actually benefit in terms of scaling your work and making a bigger impact. And then from there, we measure all levels of this flow here, so that we can actually distill out the blueprint and actually make best practices that can be shared across the world in the form of a publication under NIST. We do work with an organization called Urban Leap, which creates a pilot project management platform. So this is where we would pilot projects on and actually put in the metrics and distill out those best practices and those data-driven processes. We also are essentially building a membership of organizations. Right now, it is completely free, of course. We have not thought about money. But what we are looking for are institutions, we're looking for employers, we're looking for cities, and we're looking for people in the education space to be part of our membership. And then the benefits is potential clients, potential partners, potential projects that you can expand on. So that is it. The next step is to join by filling out this form. And you can go to that by going to www.bit.ly/join-EDSC. And that will give us data to understand that you're interested, and then we can reach out to you and then go from there. Appreciate it. That is it. Thank you so much.